eliminate that step as well. So I'm going to just save that to Inventory Lab and click create. And there's our batch right there. But I am going to actually kind of just go back a bit, and I'm going to import that buy list. So as you can see, I can use a batch to import the buy list, or even if I'm already listing, I've already got products in a batch, and I have somebody's outsourcing for me and they come in with a new buy list, well, I can just import that into an already existing batch as well. So I'm going to find my file here, and I have one all ready to go, and process that buy list. So we're going to put that through a 3-step process. We're going to do that automatically. And then you just kind of just sit back and let it happen. But here are all the different columns that can be in your buy list. So there's a couple that are required, like the ASIN, the list price, things like that. But if you want to, plug all this stuff in now, you can certainly do that. All of these columns can be automated in your buy list. And click next. And we're going to start that 3-step process. So first, Inventory Lab has validated my buy list right here. So if I had any MSKUs in this buy list that required my attention, they would appear in red, they would be at the top. Usually that's things like this already exists in your inventory. And if that's the case, this button would say replenish. I can just click replenish. So that means that Inventory Lab is going to make sure that I use the same MSKU. Or it's going to say maybe a duplicate. Maybe I have the MSKU appearing twice in that buy list. And this button would say merge. So Inventory Lab would take them and squish them together, including the quantities. But everything here appears in green. So we can zip down here, just double check. Everything's looking great. There's my quantities. Everything is good. And now I move on to the next step. Now Inventory Lab's going to ask Amazon to validate the buy list. So they're just going to kind of just check in with them like, hey, you want to just give this like a little bit of a peek?
Now, these are all from your scans, right, Kimberly, when you're out scanning, and these are the things that you've decided that you're going to buy, and it populates a list, right? Just in case anybody was wondering like how this got here.
Yep.
Okay, great.
So those were the items that I added to my buy list while I was in Scoutify. And then I clicked on that, the little shopping cart that appears at the bottom, and I can email that to myself. And I saved that to my computer, and now I can import it into Inventory Lab. The other option, so that's with Scoutify, but you don't have to do it that way. You can use, it's just perfectly formatted to be imported into this, but you can use that as a template. So if you're not doing retail arbitrage, if that doesn't meet your need, it's just a basic .csv formatted spreadsheet. It's already there for you. Use it as a template. You plug in the information, into it, and then import that however you want to, but it's already formatted. So you can do it with Scoutify. You can do that manually, whatever works best for you. We have it available. But we can see the very top is grayed out. So Amazon has removed this item from the batch because it's restricted from fulfillment. Sometimes you'll see hazmat, I've tried to do batches with lighter fluid, just to demonstrate Amazon kind of taking something out. So, back in the day, I would list this, it would go to Amazon, it would be stranded, I would have to pay to get it sent back to me. That's no longer the case when you're using this imported buy list. So we can then move forward because everything's nice and clean, we're good to go. And we click add to batch. So your buy list can be extensive. This is relatively small, I guess, but this can be, this thing could go on forever, technically, I guess, but this is going to speed up that process because what we're going to see now, as this is kind of now, put into Inventory Lab, it's all here. Here's all my products. So this is what the screen would look like after I've listed each one by one, which is still, an improved process over listing in Seller Central, but I'm done. I've imported the buy list and I'm completely done. I could import another buy list on top of it if I wanted to. I could continue listing if I wanted to. One of the questions that we get pretty often is, well, what about the labels? Because that's really a popular feature for folks coming to Inventory Lab, because as you're listing each item, as you're adding it to the batch, that's when your barcode labels are printed. So compared to Seller Central, where you kind of list everything and then you create shipments and then you print your 30 up labels and then you go back and you match it all up. That's not the case here. You add an item to the batch, if you've got a quantity of 21 barcode labels are going to print at that moment. In this case here, what we're able to do is just print all of our labels. but everything is here and you can move forward with the process.
This is so nice for me, Kimberly, because as I go through, I can just print out all my barcode labels with my Dymo printer, which I'm sure you'll get into the different printers. But it really makes it so much easier. I used to use the 30 up and I would have to like take stuff out of the box, put it back in. But now once it's barcoded, I can just put it right in the box. So really helps out.
Dymo is probably the most popular printer. We do support Dymo, Brother, and Zebra thermal label printers. We're working on a solution right now for the Rollo printers, which are kind of really increasing in popularity. But, and Jeff, you can probably speak to it better than I do. Currently, we are running if you started a trial, or if you've already been using Inventory Lab, you would have gotten a code. But it's almost like a special discount code where if you buy a certain number of rolls of labels, you get a free Dymo 450 Turbo. Do we still have a few codes, Colin?
Yeah, we do have codes. If you didn't get an email, then reach out to us at support at inventorylab.com. And basically it's, you buy 8 rolls of the 30334 label, put in a Dymo, I think it's just the 450 printer. And then once you do, you input the code and they take the cost of the printer right off of there. So you're getting a free printer with that. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, you should have gotten an email, especially for trial users, recent ones especially, they should have gotten an email. But if you just signed up, you're going to get that email about 7 days after you signed up for the trial. So if you're in your first few days of the trial, give it a few more days. And then if you haven't gotten it by the 8th or 9th day, then reach out to us. But
yeah, and our folks had the most success with Dymo printers. Right. I mean, they really are just super user friendly. And then the 30334 size, that's the 1 1/4 by 2 1/4 size labels. They're really just the most user friendly, I think, of all of them. But yeah, so it's a really great deal. If you haven't picked up a printer yet, I mean, I bought mine off of eBay when I got started, but you just never know. But yeah, definitely a good investment. And there's really a moment where you have to realize the time that you're spending, or that you don't have to spend doing things like the 30 up labels, and evaluating what a drain on your time that really is, because we'll kind of look at evaluating your profitability, and you have to factor your time into that as well. But I do want to touch on the buy list, because I know Lance and Barrington also, we had talked about this a little bit. Relatively new to our updates, a couple different things. One, you can have more than one active buy list going on in Scoutify at any given time. It used to be you could just have the one active buy list. That's no longer the case. So when you're thinking about how you could use that, you want to think about the idea that you might have multiple people outsourcing inventory for you using Scoutify. We can talk about sub accounts. That's something that folks use pretty often. If you have an Inventory Lab account, you have 2 sub accounts available to you. So what you're able to do is create a login and a password and grant access to certain parts of your Inventory Lab account and restrict access to others. And, so giving people access to Scoutify. Maybe you want to use that buy list almost like a shopping list. Like you want to send your people out to a certain store and that there's these items, your replenishables are there. So you're telling them in your buy list, pick these things up. Or maybe you create a different buy list for each person sourcing for you, or a different buy list for each supplier or store where you're going. Whatever you need that to be, you certainly can. And brand new, actually this week, it should be on everybody's app by now. I know mine has updated. You can now send your buy list to multiple email addresses. It used to be that you could only email that to your Inventory Lab login email address. That is no longer the case. You can send that thing out to just about any old email address, and several at the same time. Just separate them by a comma, and you can email those out and get everybody, saving those and importing them, however that would work for your business. But that's available now as well. Any other questions before I move forward in the listing process here?
Just so I keep getting excited. I keep jumping in. I apologize. But
No.
This is what you just brought up is so valuable for our group Balance, because we have a target group. We have a lot of retail arbitrage folks that are really going to benefit from this. And some people are just scared to take it to the next level because they're thinking of all the dimensions involved with trying to integrate shoppers into their business scheme. But when you have tools like this that make it so much easier, it's really a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at this thinking like, what can I do with this? How can I expand and have shoppers running around for me and use the whole Inventory Lab system to track everything? I think Barrington wants to say something too. I saw him hop.
I like the point where she mentioned you can create different buy lists. So it doesn't have to be one across board. I could do one for my shopper in New York, one for my shopper in Florida, one for my shopper up in Pennsylvania. That's really what really caught my attention a while ago. No, it doesn't have to be one across. It could be separate ones for different, areas. That's something I'm really interested in.
Yeah, and I see people using them as, such unique ways all the time. Robin Johnson, I'm a huge fan of hers. I think she's like one of the most fantastic people on the planet. She talked about how she trains people that source for her. So she'll use that buy list and shows them how to move from one side of the store to the other, and shows them exactly where they need to go for these replenishables. So she's kind of sending them out with that already populated buy list, almost like a shopping list, while other people are creating a buy list, like, Lance's buy list, March 2019, and then telling their person, to go out and source and add your items to your buy list. And then so then I'm able to track better who's sourcing what. And then I'm able to use that information later on to see, which one of my employees is really, bringing in, making more profit, or how you're paying commission. There's no end to the different ways that you could use those. And again, I know kind of mentioned over and over, but really customizing all of these tools for your business. So we really try hard to not like just, pigeonhole a feature so that it's not customizable. Like I go to all of our conferences and trade shows that we sponsor. I've never met one person two people running the exact same business model. It just isn't possible. It's not the case. These things all need to be flexible and customizable so that you can not, square peg round hole, but an easy fit for you to kind of just tweak to make it work better for you. Anything less than that is a waste of your time.
Guys in the chat, can you give us, are there any questions at this point based on, what she has covered so far? Are there any questions that's on your mind that's burning right now? Because maybe at the end it will get lost. So we want to take your questions intermittently. So let us know if there are any questions at this point based on everything that Kim has just discussed. Is there anything that you could think of right now that you want to ask? You could go ahead and post that in the chat box right here. Other than that, Kim, will move on to the next feature.
Great.
Some higher level stuff that I thought I'd point out just so we give everybody a chance. And Barrington, you were kind of talking a little bit before, and I think this might interest you depending on the business model that you're really kind of focused on. But at the end of the listing process in Inventory Lab, the batch is closed and nothing's ever deleted. It lives in closed batches. So if you go down to list, I'm actually going to right click on closed batches so I can open it up in a new tab. So these are all batches that I've used, I've just created before and maybe created shipments or whatever. Now they're closed. These can all be restored. You've always been able to restore them, but I can't remember how long ago it was, but you can restore a batch as a new batch. So if I go in here, I'm going to click the batch name. My computer's going to run nice and slow because of course it will. But if you go over to restore is up here. So you can even select the items in the batch that you want to restore. So if I just want to, if I am replenishing the same MSKUs over and over again, I might have a batch where all of this information already lives and I don't need to put it in manually again. So if that's, this is a batch, if this would be an example of that batch, I want all of these items to be included. I'm going to go to restore and I'm going to restore this bad boy as a new batch. I'm not just restoring it. I want this to be brand spanking new. Do I want to turn on the box contents? Why? Yes, I do. And then again, now it's done. So if you're replenishing, this is going to be something that you're going to want to take a look at as well.
That's me. We sell coffee here from Jamaica. So our batch is going to be the same over and over. So we're sending 24 of the 16 ounce. Once that's sold, we're going to send it again. When it's sold, we're going to send it again. So this is something that I would love to use because I can do this over and over. And as opposed to me going in and say, oh, I have to create this new shipment again. And I have to put this one in. I don't like to do that. So this, restore it as a new batch is definitely a feature that we want to look into.
And if your costs change, if for some reason your cost per unit changes, this time around, it's very easy to change that. You just go in there and edit. But kind of going off of what you were just saying, I do want to touch on a little bit more about replenishing. So another feature that I'm not sure that you're aware of is the velocity report. Do you know anything about entering your lead time days and velocity at all? No?
Well, I want to see this.
So excited. Okay. So if you go to, now this is our colleague Abigail's account. She's not really a seller. So I like to use her account for like demonstrating like listing purposes. I usually use my own account for other stuff, but I'm going to show this to you here. I'm on the inventory, FBA inventory page, and I am going to change the view. The default view is the accounting view, and I'm going to change this to management. So you can see on the right-hand side, replenish lead time, and it says, do not track this item. If this is a replenishment, I'm going to track this item. So I'm going to plug in my lead time days. So what does that mean? That is the amount of time that I need. Like how many days does it take me to pick up the phone, call my supplier, have the inventory delivered, for me to process it, to send it into Amazon, have them process it, and now it's in my inventory. Maybe that's, I don't know, like we'll say like 29 days. So I'm going to plug in 29 days. So later on, somewhere in the vicinity of about 24 hours, when you go to your velocity report, under your reports tab, velocity report, you're going to, well, I'll have to switch over to my account, but you're able to see your average, the maximum sales, your recent sales, but all the way on the right-hand side, it's your replenished by date. So it's the date based on your lead time days, a bunch of other funky math that I never did follow exactly. But there's going to be a date, meaning that's the date that you need to pick up the phone or get in your car to go to the supplier, whatever that process is to source that inventory. That's the date you need to do it by in order to avoid any stockouts.
Like that. I like that feature.
That's so much needed.
Yeah, it's a nice, basic, clean, so if that's, some people replenish by dates and stockouts and overstocks, that plays a bigger role in their business. This is really great. If you're replenishing an item and it's just like what Barrington was describing, as inventory is decreased, well, you just send more in. And with coffee, you're really not going to have to, probably, I would assume you're not looking at overstock being too much of an issue. So this would play perfectly into something like that. Okay, going back to list and prep, I'm going to skip forward. There are 4 steps. We're in a private batch here, so it's a nice guided process. Step 1, list. Step 2 is review, which is just look it over. Does it look good? Great, move forward. And then we get to the shipments part of this entire process. So here's our review batch page. Everything looks good. Moving forward, I'm going to send that information to Amazon. Amazon is now going to immediately come back and say, okay, Kim, this is where we want you to send this inventory. So
hey, Kim.
Yeah.
Just one real quick thing that comes up, especially if you're new to Inventory Lab, is those tentative destinations when you create your first batch. We're not really sure where Amazon likes to send your products, so it's kind of a guesstimate as to where they're going to go. So you might see, 20 different fulfillment centers, but actually when you get to this page here, it's going to consolidate, and Amazon's not going to send them to 20 different places. Usually it's, 4, maybe 3, hopefully 1.
And
but
usually in Abigail's account, we always get 1 fulfillment center. I'm like, man, you're like the luckiest.
Yeah.
Like, how does that happen? I never get that. But this is an even better example. So Amazon has come back and said, okay, we want you to send these products to these 4 fulfillment centers. I'm going to click on the top row, and it's going to show me all of the MSKUs that are included in this. So I can kind of look it over. And if I'm feeling like, yeah, this is decent number of MSKUs, it's worth it for me to, send this inventory to AVP1. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click create. I'm going to create this shipment. I'm going to confirm. And then if you look down here, the working shipments window, you'll see it appear down there right away. It is now a working shipment. So now, because it's a working shipment, I can still make some changes. So I could increase or decrease the quantity. That would have to be within Amazon's guidelines, though, of 5% or a quantity of 10, up or down. Or I could delete the item out of my shipment entirely. So any possible thing could have gone wrong. You never know. So that's something that you want to know that you're able to do. So that's going to happen after you create that shipment. You can make those adjustments. But then if we look at these others here, this is another really big highlight for listing an inventory lab is this flexibility that you have. So like I said, with AVP1, it's profitable for me to send this thing. Great. But if I go down here to DFW7, I'm like, ugh. I mean, it's a quantity of 3 MSKUs in total going to DFW7. If I feel like that's not cost effective for me to send that, I don't have to send it. I can simply decline the shipment and then move on to the next one. This page, I will say, is the only time sensitive step in the process. I mean, you can open a batch and leave it open indefinitely and whatever you want to do. Oh, perfect. Leave this here while I finish my thought, and then I'll show you what this is. You can really, any other step, you can just kind of let it hang out, go on vacation, do what you want to do. But at this step, you can actually even see there's a little clock winding down here for 48 hours. We've transmitted that information to Amazon. We have to make a decision on each of these proposed shipment plans within 48 hours. If you don't, the world's not going to end, but Amazon is going to need to reroute all of your items to different fulfillment centers. It's going to cause errors. It's going to be a mess. So you just want to make a decision on each one. So create it, decline it. Some higher level information is the option to create it, but leave it open as a working shipment to be added to later. So I could create this one to DFW7 and, maybe in a week or something, I'm listing again and Amazon routes inventory to the same fulfillment center. I'll be able to click on the add to working shipment button here. So I can just add to it until it is cost effective for me to send it. So you have a lot of options, but you do want to make a decision on all the proposed plans within 48 hours and then, keep it moving. Don't let them sit there for too long.
Do you mind if I ask a real quick question, Kimberly?
Sure. Absolutely.
I'm not going to complicate things and get too tedious here, but so this plant, I think it looks like a plant, Product Works, 18-inch peanuts, Charlie Brown. Mm-hmm. Let's say that there was also that product available in the AVP shipment. Can I take a couple of those and put them on the AVP, or is that manipulation of the products? You
can within Amazon's guidelines. So that's where that 5%.
You don't have to get too deep into that. I would just,
No, it's a great question because it used to be that there wasn't really too much of a limit through the third party. Like Amazon didn't restrict it coming from Inventory Lab or other companies like Inventory Lab, but they really saw. I don't know. They weren't doing it through Inventory Lab because Inventory Lab users would never do anything like this. But Amazon did see a lot of people manipulating. It's like to make sure that those shipments were cost effective. They would drain quantities from one shipment and add it to the other, and it's totally understandable. But Amazon is routing that stuff for a reason. They need to get that these items to their customers within 2 days. So who knows their magical algorithm that they have, why they route things the way that they do. So they get it. They know it's cost effective, but their priority has got to be the customer who's buying from you. So in order to make that happen. So you can adjust them, but just within the guidelines. Yeah,
within the guidelines. Okay. Thanks so much for highlighting
that. So when we did transmit all that information to Amazon before they came back and they said, okay, we want you to send all your stuff here. Amazon has now come back because they've had an opportunity to kind of look at the information that we send. And they're like, hey, wait a minute, you're actually not authorized to sell this brand. So we have an item that's brand restricted. So remember when I kind of pointed it out, when we create that working shipment, the little trash can shows up. You could delete something completely. This would be when you would want to use that. You want to delete that out of there or apply really quick, to get approved, whatever you need to do. So Inventory Lab is not going to make you take it out of there. They're alerting you to that. So you want to take that out or, just hop on over there really quick, get approved, come back and you're good to go. So I'm going to X off of that. We're going to pretend like I'm eligible to sell that. I'm going to decline all of these other shipments. I'm going to move forward with this one. And I'm just going to give you a peek at box contents because I do want to start showing you kind of the other information that I think you'll want to see. But this is very easy to do. This is manually assigning box contents. But if I had a barcode scanner, I could also scan the barcodes as well to assign things to boxes. So you can print a pick list We had some folks that say like, hey, I've got a warehouse here. I need to be able to tell my people what to go pull from the inventory so I can pack it, as opposed to printing a packing list after the fact. You have both available to you here. You can print that. Folks really they use the packing list for all sorts of reasons, but that's, just some little extra thing that you have there. You're also able to see things like the weight of a box as you're packing it, kind of like an estimate, so that you kind of see when you're getting close to that 50-pound mark. So lots of information here. Printing labels is available. Really, you can continue to print labels from many different places because folks seem to need to print labels throughout the entire process, but lots of opportunities here. But I'm going to hop out of this account and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I'm going to just switch accounts so that I can kind of get into some better information. Any questions or anything I can answer that Jeff can answer?
Go ahead and fire away, guys. If you have anything that's burning.
Well, if it's burning, they should need to see a doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
I saw one previously about expiration dates, wanting to add the reminder date, a reminder message to the import. And when you're creating your buy list and then you import that in there, as long as you have the expiration date entered for that item, when you list a product, we create a reminder that's 60 days prior to that expiration date, which you can access through the little envelope to the left of the name in the upper right corner. So we do create a reminder that's about 60 days out. We do have some suggestions to let that be user defined in case they need more time to allow for, pulling that item back and for other reasons. But
I'll show everybody where that is just in case. I'm going to point out really just, again, just some higher level kind of information. The MSKU that's created by Inventory Lab, this little shout out to our history, Lance. There we go. The MSKU, that's Memorial Stadium for the
Memorial Eddie.
Oh my gosh, my heart. But the MSKU created by Inventory Lab, this is what this looks like when you have to go through and list one by one. That's what this would look like. So we have not imported a buy list, but I want to point out this MSKU here. This is automatically generated by Inventory Lab. This is your merchant stock keeping unit. It matches the SKU that you see in Seller Central. This is the unique identifier for each ASIN you're listing against, but this is just a random set of numbers. You can, however, instead, I'm going to cancel that. We can see that we have options. Here's that auto-generated MSKU, click edit. And this seems to be the favored way to create MSKUs. This is a custom variable MSKU. So you can have each of these components pulled from the listing to create your MSKU. So, and it can be up to 5 different elements. The only thing you can't take out is count. This is Inventory Lab's way of making sure that each MSKU remains unique. But if I want my, my MSKU to be made up of the supplier and the list price, I'm going to take this custom one out of there. I'm going to create a different custom one and put it down there. It goes on and on. So folks like to do this because when you're looking later, maybe at your profitability reports and you sort by, if you build the person that sourced inventory for you into that MSKU, you can search by their name and see like sales with them that they were involved in. And of course with the profitability report. So that's a favorite for folks right there.
I love that because you know what, this can help you to see like right away. I mean, a lot of persons will go into, let's say TJ Maxx, and they bought it for whatever price. So like JR would mention that he uses the store name, the price, the date, and what it's being sold for on that day. Kind of like, okay, that's going to give him an idea of where did I get this? A quick reference point. Where did I get this? How much did I pay? And what was it selling for? So that's like a quick reference point. So I love this. Now, before you move on, I'd love to, on the right hand side here, offers by box, send a buy box. Yep. And I think eBay, Google, Camel, all that. These are all clickable links that I can. I mean, what's the purpose over here? All these little links.
Let me get even a better example so you kind of have more to look at. Here's a different ASIN. I'm going to plug this in. So what we're seeing at that top right-hand corner, this is currently what's happening with this ASIN on Amazon.com. So there are currently 4 offers for this item. And as you can see, we don't see 4 list prices. We only see 2. That's because Amazon only shares with us the offers they consider to be competitive. So that's what we're seeing here. The little O that we see, if we look down at the key, we can see that this is currently the list price that has the buy box. And usually there's a little A right next to that, letting us know that Amazon is also likely the merchant, but it doesn't look like Amazon is a merchant on this listing. So that's pretty cool. All of these tools, these are the same tools that we have built into Scoutify. So we have Book Scouter, eBay, Google, Camel, Keepa, the Prime Comparison tool, and the Amazon Restrictions tool. You can click any of them. It's going to open up in a new tab. So additional information is available there, because this is right at that stage. If you were listing manually each one at a time that you haven't, imported a buy list, this is, where you're setting that list price. So you're kind of looking at this information so that you can kind of figure out strategically how you want to price yours, really. So all of those are there. Here's our list price. I have my settings here to have this box automatically populated with the buy box list price, so I don't have to plug it in every time. And then here's the min and max prices right here. So you can see that there's already information put in there. How did it know? Because I have set that in my auto price rules. Right here, you can see I have my minimum price set to be 5% lower than the list price and my maximum price to be 29% higher than the list price. So again, I'm not having to do that every time. And here's the question that we had about the reminder box. And exactly what they were talking about before, this is what folks used to use to have a reminder sent to themselves about an expiration date. You don't have to do that anymore because we do that for you automatically. But I mean, you can send yourself a nice kind message. Just choose a date, plug in, just like you're swell, just like plug it in there. And on that date, you're going to get a notification in your account right up here. And you're going to just, have a nice note that you sent to yourself. But with the expiration date, you're able to plug that in right here. And we're going to notify you well in advance of the expiration date that, hey, you're going to need to pull this out of your inventory. So that's taken care of for you.
Hey, Kim, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Preston asks, can you use Inventory Labs for Canada Amazon?
Great question. And the answer is, unfortunately, if you're talking about selling on Amazon.ca, no, Inventory Lab is exclusively for listing on Amazon.com. So we do have a lot of folks in Canada that are selling on Amazon.com. You do have to have, as you know, probably, that you have to have that ship from address, be a US based address, which is, there's plenty of addresses available to you, but not the other way around. So not selling on .ca. Okay. I'm going to hop over for folks that if you are using Inventory Lab, or if you're brand new, if you're in your trial, even if you're in your trial, because in that period of time, Inventory Lab is going to import for you all of your active and your inactive inventory, and then 60 days of your accounting data. So 60 days of your expenses and sales. But if you, at any stage of the game, but especially if you're brand new and you're just kind of getting used to it, really sooner rather than later. So first have fun, list products, print labels. It's just luxurious. But when that's done, you need to get your cost per unit data plugged in. You can do that manually. I'm right here under inventory on the FBA inventory page. You can do that one by one. If you have more than a couple dozen MSQs though, the easiest way to do this is come to this page, click export. It's a .csv formatted spreadsheet. If you don't know what that is, it's just like the universal format for a spreadsheet. So click export, plug in your cost per unit information and your supplier and your purchase date if you have it. Save that spreadsheet, come right back here and click import. You're going to be importing that in. It's going to show up on this page, but what's going to happen is that cost per unit information is going to be applied to all of the past sales you've had of that MSQ, as well as the sales going forward of that MSQ. So that means that you now immediately have actionable information available to you in your profitability reports that we're going to look at. But I'm going to go under accounting because here's the next stop. So you've listed, you had fun with labels, you've plugged in your buy cost information, your account, your supplier and your purchase date. The next stop you want is other expenses. So Inventory Lab's importing for you a ton of stuff automatically. So your 30-day storage fees, long-term storage fees, your Amazon Pro Seller subscription fees, all that's going to be here for you. But this is where you're going to put everything else. And I mean everything. I work with so many people, they have just information piecemealed all over the place. And that really is to their detriment. And we'll talk a little bit about why. But just come in here, click add, plug, you can create a brand new category. You can call it weirdest category ever, whatever you wanted to call it. Choose a date, the amount, put in a brief description. And is it going to be repeated, or is it a one-off expense? So like maybe you have a subscription to a repricer. Tell Inventory Lab to account for that every month, so you don't have to come back and do it all the time. Or maybe you went to a conference, or you bought a course, or you paid you belong to a group. Plug that in here. All the weird expenses, the tape, warehouse, I don't care what it is, plug it in, because all of this is going to funnel through to some really actionable information. Same thing goes for other income. Go into other income. We have folks that are also selling on other marketplaces, usually eBay. So they'll put in their gross eBay sales in other income, and then they'll put in their eBay fees and their PayPal fees into other expenses. Just a place to capture all of it. If you've ever been in an Inventory Lab webinar before, you know that this is usually where I really it's like the come to Jesus talk. There's a lot of us that came to this without a background in business. I'm very open with how dismal I was in the early days. Like my background was in the nonprofit sector. I depended on e-commerce to, stand in the gap between my salary and what I needed to keep the lights on. And e-commerce, eBay particularly, and then Amazon later, played an active role in our household. And I am forever grateful to those platforms. But I had no idea what I was doing. I knew money was going out and I knew money was coming in. But if you asked me where I stood as a business, I couldn't tell you. And being on the other side of it, I am now able to look and know and kind of understand that it really caused me a lot of anxiety. I was often discouraged, like everybody else has this figured out and I don't have it figured out. But I didn't even know if I did have it figured out. I was just convinced I didn't. It was just always confusion, always felt chaotic. And I could never quite step into that role of entrepreneur. But Inventory Lab, as well as, there's tons of other methods, but this is what you need. We were talking about this earlier, that this is the factor between somebody that sells their stuff online, like a hobby, and an entrepreneur. This is where it all kind of comes together. So you have all those expenses plugged in. You have your buy costs plugged in. Inventory Lab is importing all your sales for you automatically, syncing with your Seller Central account several times throughout the day. Your refunds are being tracked automatically. You got your reimbursements are being tracked. All of these things are done. Everything under reports. For the most part, you don't have to run a report. It's automated for you, but we have it all available here. You just need to look at it. You just have to take this information. So you have 4 different profitability reports, because it's important that you're able to view your profitability from different perspectives. So supplier, category, SKU, and by ASIN. I'm going to look at the category profitability report. This is actually just the last 30 days. So I'm going to change this so we have something at least a little bit more interesting to look at. We were talking earlier, and I was telling them that one of my favorite things to do at conferences is to sit down with an Inventory Lab customer and really take a deep dive. Like, tell me about your business. Now let's look at your Inventory Lab account and see, any kind of gaps. Let's fill all these, these blanks in, and we'll do it together and optimize the entire thing for their business. But I always get to this point, and so I always kind of ask, what category do you think is your most profitable? And I'm telling you, they're very confident. Well, I know it's this category. It's usually toys is the category that people feel like is their most profitable. But 9 times out of 10, it's not correct. And it's shocking to them. They're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And immediately they'll say, what am I selling in the, let me look at this in my account here. They'll say, what am I selling in the baby product category? Well, I don't know, but let's go find out. Let's look at your MSKU profitability report. Let's look at yours, and then let's take that information and look at your supplier profitability report and see what's really working. And that's another one. Category and supplier are the 2 that people feel very confident that one is more profitable than all the others. And most often they're incorrect. But it's explainable for sure. Like when you look at the category profitability, you're like, oh, well, I'm doing great in the, whatever category. Let's just say it's kitchen. Well, yeah, 102% ROI is not too shabby, for sure. I mean, like, who wouldn't want 102% ROI? But when we look at grocery, well, you want to know it's better than 102%, 133. So you want to look at, what are you doing in that category? And never deserting one category for another or supplier for another, but shifting, just shifting some of that energy, some of that revenue over, and kind of leveraging this information to grow, make some different decisions, and maybe branch out into a different type of product. But when you see consistently that you're more profitable in a category or a supplier or with an ASIN or with an MSKU, you know where to kind of put that energy and making those informed decisions. But really, where you want to,
I just wanted to hop in here. This is a very, very important point in this presentation, because if you are focusing your energy on a category that you think is making you money, but then you look at your reports and your reports are telling you something totally different, this is when you will start to now say, I've been channeling all my energy into sporting goods because I'm thinking I'm making money. But when I look at this report, it's saying that I'm in the negative. But then I looked at a category like beauty or maybe grocery or whatever, and I never thought I was doing anything there. And I'm looking at the profitability showing me that, hey, I'm way up there. You know what? A lot of Amazon sellers, a lot of us as Amazon sellers, we kind of only do this like in Q4. We're like, okay, what were we selling good last year? Because Q4 is when everybody makes the money. But then you could reverse that to say, what did I sell well maybe 2 Q1s ago or 2 Q2s ago, meaning the slow time, when it's usually a slower time of the year. I could look back a couple of years, like, what caused the spike? Oh, wow, I found some of these Legos on clearance at Walmart, and that's what caused the spike. So this is very, very important, guys. You have to know, you have to read the data to know what is selling, what you're doing well on, because 80% of, like 20% of your SKUs is going to make you 80% of your profit. So you have to know which ones and not stock out all the time.
And that's where such extraordinary growth can occur. When you have that information and you're able to really focus in on those 20%, wow, I mean, like what you can do it, but know though that you're not alone. When I tell you that I sit down with people and they are very confident that they know, there's just something like in us that just like we naturally want to just say like, oh yeah, we know. Usually it's because they're selling a higher quantity, from a category or a supplier. But they, it's not an arrogant thing. It's not an arrogance, but it's just naturally they feel like they know. And that's where that shock kind of comes in, like, oh my gosh, what am I selling in the baby category? It happens like that, like every time, like boom, boom, boom.
It's so comforting, Kimberly, just to, when I go through and I check out my reports, when I go to the accounting and I go right down to the profit loss. So, that's the most attractive one to me, because I can see, okay, here's what I did in January. Here's what I did in February. And I'm very transparent that 2 years ago, I almost lost everything. I was in $1 million arena working with a manufacturer, and I was putting all my effort into that. And things got chaotic on the personal business because I was so involved with this manufacturer. So I love how you're so real about this. And you were talking about how you were worried and the chaos was, the anxiety. We've all dealt with this because we're all entrepreneurs, that we have the tendency to wander and to not want to take the time to really perfect this stuff. But that's why these tools are so powerful, because it makes it so much easier. You just have to log on. And I mean, here we have a whole video recording. This is all going to be recorded. You guys can go back and learn how to do this.
And quickly, Kim, before you even jump into your next point, the important thing here is that we have to put in the correct buy costs. And that's very important, because the reports will not mean anything if the numbers are skewed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that was exactly what I was going to say. It's because everything that we've seen here under reports, this is all, automated. All I did was click a button, but the data is driven by the, just the few minutes I took to put in the buy costs. And that's just when you're brand new, or if you haven't done it yet, exporting that thing, plugging them in and importing it. After that, you're plugging in your buy costs as you're listing. So you're not going to have to go back and do that. It's now part of the workflow. It's not going to have to be like a designated task to the side. Or same thing with other expenses. just take the time that you got to take. It might take a whole Saturday, depending on who you are, or it might just take a half an hour. Get the other expenses plugged in. Stop having it piecemealed all over the place, because what happens is this is your profit and loss report. And I'm telling you, this is where it all happens. All roads lead to the profit and loss report. All the information that you plug in, all your sales, everything that Inventory Labs, importing for you automatically from Amazon when it comes to their fees, everything is captured here. And then this is where you want to get. I'm going to scroll down. It's a pretty extensive report, obviously.
Yeah, it is.
Get right here at this, about 2/3 of the way down on the right-hand side. That's your net profit.
That's the gravy.
Knowing where you stand as a business. If you have your data piecemealed all over the place, you're going to look at that and say like, well, yeah, I mean, that's great, but I'm still waiting for that invoice from my accountant, or I'm still whatever. But when you can stand in that as the truth of where you are as a business, that's where that shift happens. You don't have somebody that has a hobby selling online who can tell you their net profit. Like everything's accounted for. That's an entrepreneur. Even if this number is not what you want it to be, even if it's a red number, my hope for you is that it's not. But if it is, I'm telling you that the value is in the knowing. That's how you're going to step into that role and self-identify as an entrepreneur. That's where growth happens. People with hobbies selling online aren't scaling. Entrepreneurs are scaling, and you've got to have that. You have to have this. Just take the time, put in the other expenses, automate the heck out of it. All the expenses that you can, automate it. Just get it done once with Inventory Lab, and then you're putting in your buy cost as you're listing. If you're replenishing, you're not even gonna have to do that. But get to this number. This is where you're gonna see that growth. Retail arbitrage, wholesale, private label, I don't care what your business model is. Mm-hmm. You have all the tools that you don't have to use Inventory Lab. Obviously, I want you to. I believe in what we do. And I know our mission like the back of my hand. But get to this number. Get to that net profit. Do whatever you have to do to get to that number. And the barriers that stood between you and those goals will start to dissipate. But so important. So important to have that. So that's what people mean when they say like, know your numbers. Like, okay, put on a bumper sticker, but what does that even mean? Like without a background in business, like I didn't know what that meant. Like what numbers? I don't even know enough to know what I don't know. So the tools are here. They're available.
And is there anyone that wants to come on live and ask a question? Because I know a lot of you in here use Inventory Labs. Can we get a chime in the chat to see who uses Inventory Labs, who this is brand new information to, who's thinking about using Inventory Labs? If you're using Inventory Labs already, just go ahead and put a 1 in the chat.
Can I add something else too, Barrington? Also, if you're already using Inventory Lab and you just discovered tonight that there's so many things that you weren't tapping into, I don't even know. What are we going to do? 2 for that one?
Put a 2 for that one.
Put a 2 for that one.
Are you seeing the responses in the chat, Lance?
Oh, yeah. 2.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of ones.
Let me mention, though, that Jeff and I actually do all of the webinars. We try to hold them pretty regularly, at least once a month, usually more like 2 or 3 times per month, where we just kind of do a walkthrough and, a little bit more in depth than what we did tonight. Like I kind of look at refunds and we kind of get into it. Jeff and I usually make it a point to stay on until every question's been answered. But we have a lot of people that'll come in just for the Q&A. So they'll come in like a half an hour or so in to ask questions. They're available. Join us for all of them if you want to. If you just like the sound of our voices, like you can just register and just jump into one, and we'll go through whatever you want us to go through and demo whatever we can help with.
Hey, Barrington. Hey, Barrington's Robert.
Yeah. Hey, Robert.
Hey, Chris is heavy into Inventory Labs. Maybe he can chime in a little bit.
Yeah, Big Chris, where you at?
And we know he uses shoppers extensively in his group. So
this will track that too. And what I was thinking, Kim, as you were talking about how you just have to take a Saturday, man, just hop in there and put your numbers in. I'm thinking, man, some people still won't do that. Well, maybe have somebody come on your sub account and do it for you if you don't want to do it. There's always a way to get around this, like trying to deflect this all the time.
That really, honestly, that's me.
Me too.
I grew up with a lot of anxiety around money, probably because of the lack of it. Yeah. So I connect anxiety to money. So it is difficult for me to self-identify as an entrepreneur because I don't feel like money works with me, almost like against me. Really great woman, Cindy Thomason. She wrote Profit First for E-commerce Sellers. A book just came out, and she's just super, super knowledgeable. She was kind of talking about that we view money in a different way. So it can cause anxiety. But that's kind of why I say it wasn't until I was on the other side that I was able to look back. I didn't realize that was the source of how I felt so discouraged all the time, or frustrated, or fearful. But when I tell you that if it's a 2.5 hour investment, if it's a 90-minute investment that you sit down and you put in, it's going to pay off for the next 90 months.
Yes.
That's an ROI. I know. If you see me at a conference, if you're going to be at a conference that I'm going to be at, bring your box of receipts with you. We will sit down and we'll just do it together. I'm not good at it, but I'll do the best I can.
I'm down with that, man. I'm not
an accountant, but I can enter some data like nobody's. But just get it done. There is such the benefit of it is it's everything. If you're looking to run your business, it's everything.
Quick question for you, Kim. Now, is there a way, like Lance was mentioning, that someone else could, have access to your account on a user basis, and then they're able to enter some stuff for you, like, hey, enter all my pricing because you know all this pricing. Go ahead and enter all this pricing, and this is my suppliers and all that.
Yeah. So everybody has 2 sub accounts available to each Inventory Lab account. No additional cost. You're going to go to your name, my accountant, over to the left, employees, and you can enter 2 sub accounts here. So ways that people use these, like if you have an accountant, like you can grant them access to reports, if that's what you want to do. But if you have a team of people maybe helping you list and prep, you're going to give them access to list, but restrict them from other areas of your account. This is also a way that folks really find it helpful to work with a prep and ship company. So if you're using a company, if you're having, sending the inventory to them, or just having a manufacturer even ship it directly to them, adding them as a sub account is really helpful. And a lot of them, they're familiar with Inventory Lab already. And they're like, oh, thank God you have Inventory Lab. We're not going to have to mess around. I think it's a little bit better now that Amazon has kind of opened the door a little bit to doing something similar, like in Seller Central. But yes, a lot of folks like to use it for that. But this is the same thing. Like if you're going to have folks outsourcing for you, that's where you would want to set up a login and a password, because you can have Scoutify on multiple mobile devices. So you can have a team of people out there sourcing for your business. If you're going to Target, you need to have the tri-state area targets covered with your people sourcing that inventory. So that's available to you. So sub accounts is what you want to do for that.
Great. Chris has a question. I'm trying to bring him on live here. He handles our clothing and shoe group, and he's great with just doing like shoppers that go out for him. I think he really wants to figure out how to get this done through Inventory Labs, because that would make I think he's using Excel now to do the list, but I already have Inventory Labs. You could get this done really quick. Robert, are you seeing Chris on under your attendees? You could just bump him on here so he could ask this question.
Yes, I'll try to get him on real quick here.
Yo, that's fascinating information, because you could imagine, hey, I could just say, in Florida, hit these targets, here's the list, just go. Man, that would be so nice. And then I can track who is my most profitable shopper, because this person, I'm going to be seeing their SKU all the time. Oh, wow. That is data. That's information that makes sense. I will invest time into that, because that's going to help me, as you said, for the long term.
Yeah. Because remember, when you're going to your reports, so if you remember how you can build that custom M SKU. So if you go to your SKU profitability report, and if you have, the name Lance is built into your M SKU, search Lance, it's going to pull up that in the reports and view the profitability for the last month, or just go directly to sales and, search your sales that way, and be able to see, like, maybe Lance is like doing a really awesome job, or maybe Lance is like slacking, it's like only one way to find out.
He's lounging.
Love that. No, question for you.
I love it.
Can I see like my top customer, like my top customer that bought coffee from me? Because obviously selling coffee, you have a lot of repeat clients coming over and over. Can Inventory Labs help me to see which is my top client that I could actually say, hey, here's a 10% coupon. You bought so much coffee from me.
We do not have your buyer's information on our side. The most that I could point to would probably be the sales tax report. Excuse me. I'm trying to think. I don't remember the flow of where that's found in Seller Central, but on the Inventory Lab side, that's not, you're not seeing information about your buyer.
Are you talking about your runners, Barrington? Because Amazon protects it.
Persons who buy from me online. So I understand. She doesn't have.
Oh yeah, you'd have to scrape the data through like an email scraping data tool.
Good question. Good question.
Hey Barrington, I don't see the option to bring him on from my end.
He's asking questions on here. Let me see. He said, let me see if I can find the one that he just asked. I
have an email for my shoppers sub account. They all use the same sub account. What does the buy list look like on Scoutify? Are there pictures?
I do not have a screenshot of that. However, I'm trying to think if the video tutorial. I don't. Oh, you know what? Yes, I do. We have there. Is there any way to attach that handout for the attendees that I sent y'all, the PDF with all the links in it?
Yes, let me download that real quick. Give me a couple minutes here.
I put together like basically like Cliff Notes, Inventory Lab Cliff Notes, and it just kind of takes you through the things that we've talked about. But there are links in there, and our YouTube channel has it as well. If you go, really the easiest thing to do in the account, go to resources, go to Help Center, and just type in buy list. And you're going to see the help articles for that. But there's a tutorial that I did that shows, I don't even know how I managed to figure it out, but I managed to record my screen and upload that into my video production and editing software. It was a downright miracle, but I did it and it's in there. So it's just like a little window that pops up and it has fields that you can kind of plug information into. But the buy cost field is already populated for me because I had already looked, I plugged that in when I was researching, like, is this thing even profitable? So that's already there. I can have a lot of the fields automatically filled in for me, by default. Lots of different ways to automate that so it's easier.
Thanks again, Kimberly, for providing that for everybody.
Yeah.
It's going to be very helpful.
Absolutely.
If you look at the buy list on the phone, it does show the pictures and the images, but not, of course, on your export.
Oh yeah, that's what I should do. I should just pull it on my phone.
Yeah, it shows. I'm going to look at mine real quick.
Once you open up the buy list, it'll show it. But
and that's Scoutify 2, right? When you go to the App Store, you got to do Scoutify 2 now, not.
Correct.
I don't know if the other one's even out there anymore, but it's Scoutify 2.
That you can't download it new from any of the app stores now. We still have folks that are still using it. Mm-hmm. We haven't shut it down completely, but it's not available for new downloads. But I don't know. Can you see this? I can't tell.
A little glare.
A little bit of a glare.
Kind of like stick it right on the camera.
Like right on there. Like the first screen when I click the cart are all the different buy lists that I have open currently. And then whatever buy list I want to view, I tap that. And I've got the image of the item to the left. I've got the title, the quantity that was sourced, and I have the buy cost that was plugged in. And then I can drill down even further into just that item. If I tap that, there's my cost per unit, my tax code, list price, quantity, purchase date, expiration date, supplier, condition, tax rate, discount, and any notes, condition notes. I can even plug that in proactively if I want to, or add it later after it's all in the batch. So it's all kind of laid out pretty nicely, and a lot of these things can be automated, which is what I really like. So I don't want to have to, 10 different fields would be.
Quick question, Kim. So I don't even know if there's probably not a way to do this, but I'm just wondering if you know any like rules of thumbs or tricks along the way. But when I put a price in, let's say I bought something at CVS for like $3, and then I go back the next time and it's on sale for $2, you just kind of like do an average in your head, or because you have to input that price, right? What you paid for it. I don't know if there's a way around that. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
So did you purchase it for $3? Did you purchase some quantities and then go back and purchase additional quantities for the $2?
And I went back. Yes, this is just. I mean, this has happened to me, not recently, but I'm just thinking of scenarios in my head. Like, let's say I go to CVS and I buy jelly beans and they're $3, and then I go back another time, the same SKU, same jelly beans, and they're on sale this time. I get them for $2. So like I'm gonna have two different prices in Inventory Lab. I guess you just kind of average it out, right?
No.
Okay.
No
Nice.
averaging.
Wow.
So there's a couple of different things that could happen. So if you are listing, like let's say that you're replenishing an item and it is a different cost per unit, the next time that you replenish it. When you list the item, Inventory Lab is going to capture that multiple buy cost for you automatically. I'm going to show you what that looks like.
Yeah, you would
here.
just put the price in again. Yeah, it will capture because I'm still thinking in my mind like one dimension. It's this unit, but it's still going to capture the price, right?
Yeah, Inventory Lab will create a new sort sequence. So that's what we're seeing here. So this looks like I replenished the item 3 different times, 3 different costs per unit. So Inventory Lab then uses the FIFO or first in, first out accounting method, meaning like for the first 5 units, my cost per unit of $1 was accounted for in the sale. After I exhausted that quantity, Inventory Lab moved down to the second sort sequence.
I love this.
And now $1.75 will be accounted for in the sale, and then so on and so on. What can happen though is, let's say you went to CVS one day and then brought that home and put it in your basement, and then you went and sourced it for a different price, and you want to send them all in at the same time.
Yeah.
So now you have 2 different buy costs. So what you want to do with that is just list the item, list the quantities just with 1 buy cost.
Yeah. Okay.
When that is then live in your account, that's when you want to come in here, and I'm going to highlight this row. We're just going to say that we're going to say that I sent 6 in, 4 of them were for $1.15, but I paid $1.25 for the other 2. Okay. So what I want to do is split the MSKU. So what I want to change, I want to split out 2. I paid $1.25 for those 2. Maybe I got them from a different
place
source, or a different date. Maybe it might be the same date. Who knows? Okay. And then split. And now the sort sequence is created for me, and Inventory Lab is going to put that right in that process of the FIFO accounting method.
Man, that's so cool. I really love that, because I was always thinking about I just kept putting the same price in or kind of averaged it, but this is really getting down to the preciseness of it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so often, it doesn't really matter, like wholesale even, you'll all the time, folks will get like a break on every piece that they purchase above 1,000, that plays a really big role. Being able to account for those multiple buy costs is really important. You want to be able to make sure that you do that. And so that's how you would do that here. During the listing process, I'm just going to change this back here. What did I have that as? 6, right? Yeah.
6, yeah.
When you are listing, I believe I have turned on the total cost calculator in my account. Let me just see here. I'll just plug in this ASIN. This is another shout out to, oh no, I was going to show variations. Let me get a different thing in the Who's right
We
here.
love variations.
God bless them. But what I'm listing here, I have on the total cost calculator. Crab chips, no less. Shout out.
We know it's grandma, it's crab chips.
The best. Usually this field is open and I would just plug in my cost per unit. If you are looking to capture, like if you've got accounting going on or like cost per unit information, like what Lance is talking about, you might want to turn on the total cost calculator, because what you want to do is like plug in your actual buy cost. Say it's $3.99. But it was Friends and Family Day at Big Lots, so I got 10% off. My sales tax rate, and maybe I had another cost. If I had to have 1,000 pieces shipped to me, maybe I want to, disperse that 1,000 or that cost amongst the quantity of 1,000, as opposed to accounting for the shipping cost under my other expenses is like one lump sum. I can, just kind of spread it out across all the 1,000 pieces. So maybe that turns out to be like 0.01. For each piece in the in the shipment. I can do that there, and then making sure that my cost per unit is accurate right there. That's just like a little bit of like a higher level sort of thing. If you are already using Inventory Lab, you definitely want to go to your name and go to settings. And this is where, like we were talking about when we were touching on how to customize Scoutify, this is where you're going to customize everything here. So all of these fields can be filled in for you automatically. You know, if don't choose the same tax code from that infinitely long list like every time. Have it populated automatically. If you've got AGEN tax in one and you're going to have it in all, have it filled in automatically. Here's my total cost calculator. I can have my expiration date printed on my barcode label if I want to. Wow. So lots of different settings are in here to really dial up, you know, what you're able to get out of inventory.
Can I go back again and so you can print the expiration date on the label?
Yeah.
On the FN SKU.
Correct. Yeah.
That is so cool because like a lot of times I go to box them and I close the box and I'm like, oh shoot, I got to go back in because it's not on it initially, you know. So yeah, that's one
of the things I was going to show Dake on it. If we have any questions, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hop out of my account and go back to Abigail's, because speaking of having those errors and expiration dates, like what do you do if you forget to put it in? I can show you how to do that really quickly. And it's why I turn on box contents every batch, no matter how big the batch is.
And Chris had some great questions, but just go ahead and go on in there because he wanted to know about is there an option to have a quantity to buy? Like for your shoppers, like, okay, buy 25 of these and 30 of these. Is there an option for that? So the shoppers know what quantity to buy.
Yeah, that's one of the fields in the buy list, so that you could definitely put that in there. There's just so many different ways you could use it. But yeah, you can put a quantity in there to have them reference. Sure.
We're going to have to get on a call, Barrington, me, you, Chris, and Robert, and, you know, Jeff, and let's talk about, because we got some ideas with this shopper thing. So we're excited.
That's cool. When you have box contents turned on, and this is why I use it every time, it gives me an opportunity. I need a margin for error, really, is what it comes down to. And my husband does too. For best example I can give you is, you know, Inventory Lab asks Amazon to validate your box content information, and a little message will come up and say like, hey, just hang tight for a second. We're going to have them validate that. You want to wait for this little success box to come up that says that Amazon has validated that everything looks good. Get your stuff out, get it on the back of a UPS truck. Well, my husband did not wait for that success message to pop up. And I was just like walking by the laptop and saw this red box. It said, you know, hey, you have something in this shipment that requires an expiration date and you didn't provide it. But thankfully he had box contents on. So I was able to get him on the phone and have him open up the box while he was in Staples getting ready to drop it off to give me an expiration date. And what I can do then is edit my box content information. So what I could do is add that expiration date, you know, whatever the case may be. So choose a date in the future and be done with it. There's that expiration date. And then I can transmit updated box content information, replacing the old information with the new information. And it has an expiration date. So as opposed to getting to the fulfillment center and I got to, you know, pay to have my straight-in inventory shipped back to me, I'm able to just replace the information with updated information. So avoiding all of that extra stuff and expense and time, you know, that you don't want to do. So
it seems a lot easier to do the box. I always avoid the box content, and I think I'm going to start doing this because when I fill in the expiration, you know, when then you go to the Amazon platform when you're doing your working shipments.
Yep.
The expiration, I have to go in and enter them again. So I guess like if I do it this way,
yeah,
it'll be in there.
Yeah. And it's actually why we added expiration dates to Inventory Lab, because when Amazon started requiring box content information, one of the stipulations they had is they didn't want the same ASIN, multiple quantities of the same ASIN in a box with different expiration dates. So they require it at this stage of the game. And it's actually why you see that here, because this is where they want that data. And that's why we kind of say, hey, hang tight for a second, let Amazon validate this. That's actually what it is they're looking for. They're kind of going through making sure everything's good to go, but they're looking for that expiration date. They don't want the same one in the box. Yeah.
I do mine through like that bottom section, you know, like when you start putting in everything and like this box has this has this. So it's probably a lot easier for me just to do it here instead of through Amazon's platform, right?
Yeah, I think so. You know, and this satisfies everything that you would need for Amazon. So you don't need to do like the 2D barcode. You don't need to do any of that. This is the data that they need.
Okay.
Especially if you have a barcode scanner, not like the expensive one that you carry on your phone.
I got the barcode scanners.
Super, super easy. I'm gonna take everything out of this box just so you can kind of see. I'm just going to reduce this down to 0. I'm going to take these quantities out of the box, and then just so you can kind of hear what it sounds like when you're scanning barcodes. Let me just, here we go. I'm going to just click the little barcode icon there. My system is listening. And I just scan barcodes, and it's just assigning things to the box. And then if I scan too many quantities of something that don't belong in this shipment, or if I scan something that doesn't belong in it at all, I'll hear like a bonk, like sound. So it's like not nice little bing sound, but more of like a bonk sound, letting me know that something is incorrect.
You can't mess up. I mean, this is like a perfect. It's like a there's no room for error with this. This is great.
We tried, because that was a really big, especially for newer folks. Like I always talk about, like, the first time I ever created a shipment in Seller Central, like the process took me 16 hours. It was, I'll have to tell you about it someday. It was the worst types of items that I could have been sending possible. But I really liked that we have that audible cue, the beeping, because people, like, we realized, like, they're not going to be packing things in front of their computer. They might be, elsewhere in the room or whatever. So you can just turn up your volume a little bit so you can kind of hear whether or not you're successfully adding something, or maybe you've scanned something that doesn't belong in the shipment. So having the beeping and the bonking sound.
This is great for employees too, because you want to make it as simple as possible for your employees. Yeah. And I would not let somebody working, with me, I wouldn't want them to use Amazon's platform because it's so confusing. Like, having it streamlined is so much better.
Yeah.
I think Chris had another question. He was asking if we connect Seller Central into Scoutify, then Scoutify will warn us about hazmat and restrictions.
Yeah. So if you log in, so Amazon doesn't really, when you have like apps and stuff, they're like, you're going to find out your restrictions. I mean, there's some really great products out there. They're decent and, like, honest stand-up products, but you want to be careful of those, because Amazon is they have a lot of restrictions on that data about your restrictions. So that's why we kind of got with Amazon. We're like, hey, we want to do it like this. So you're logging into your Seller Central account through Scoutify. Scoutify is not scraping anything. You're logging in, and when you are logged into Seller Central, you are then going to see up front, this restrictions button is going to show up. It's going to show brand restrictions. It's going to show condition restrictions, all sorts of things are going to pop up there on the front for you. Yeah.
Jerry was asking if what option do I have to show Keepa sales ranks in Scoutify? Do I have to pay for the Keepa subscription? Because now it's behind the paywall.
I can tell you that Jeff helped me out with the language. We are in the process of working on a solution that if you like Keepa, that you'll be like, yay, inventory lab. So that's about all I can say about that.
Yeah, I can't say
that's all you can say right now.
Yeah,
it's going to be
we are working.
Good upgrade. Yeah.
We're working on a solution, but for folks that are currently subscribers to Keepa, Jeff, what information do we have? Like, if they're logged into their Keepa account, they do have stuff that'll show up.
Well, if you're on Scout on the Stratify, the desktop, and you see the Keepa graph, that's all we can show you for that item. But if you click on the graph, it should open up a window into Keepa so you can get the details for your account. Now, if you're in Scoutify 2 and you use that Keepa link, the first time you log into Keepa, then you'll see the details and stuff through Scoutify 2. But you have to use that little button for Keepa.
Cool. And guys, we just posted the link in the chat. If you want to try Inventory Labs, you can go ahead and click on that link in the chat, and you will get the trial period. But obviously, you have seen just a little taste of how powerful this software really is. And what we really appreciate about the guys at Inventory Lab is the support that you get. It's not just, okay, you've got the software, now you're out, go ahead and do it yourself. It's all about, the support that you get afterwards. And I can tell you, if you are able to read your data properly in terms of knowing your numbers, knowing what's the items that are profitable, it's going to be such a big eye opener for you. You're going to be like, wow, what was I doing all this time? Just because a lot of times we pick up products, we send them in, but we're not really sure if they're profitable. They're selling and it's great. And we're like, yay, we're making a sale. But is that sale profitable? That's the biggest question. Is that sale profitable? And that's what we want to help you guys to realize with using this software. So, there is the link in the chat. You can go ahead and click on that for a trial. And if there are any other questions, we've been like an hour and a half. This is great content. I mean, we probably had to get you guys back on.
And that handout also.
Webinar, just like.
Sorry, I lost you there for just a second. Sorry about that.
No, I was saying we probably have to get you guys back on for a focused webinar, just like on one little thing, because there's so much that we can learn from Inventory Lab.
It would be our pleasure, really. And that the handout that you might have downloaded already also has a link to be able to register for an upcoming webinar. It's going to be the same link no matter what the date is. And I'm constantly adding new dates. I think our next date it's kind of out a few weeks. It's like maybe like the third week of April. But I'm, constantly adding new dates. So feel free to jump into those. In your account, you can get a hold of our support folks right here, open a ticket. We've got chat available in the help center. And if you go to getting started, this is something that I got together with, I worked with our designer to create, it's like an interactive like simulator for listing. You're kind of like listing a fake product, but a voiceover, who's actually our designer, Jesse, walks you through listing from creating the batch all the way through to putting it in a box, step by step by step. He takes you through it. But lots of information there, YouTube, chat, open a ticket, throw something at my head at a conference, whatever you need to do, get in a webinar. We're happy to come back here, but we love offering this support, but we really love that part where you do get to the other side, where you're like me, that you look back and you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much real estate that took up in my brain or in my heart, the anxiety and that frustration, and looking back and saying, oh, without that there, look, I approach running my business very different now that I have those numbers. And but get to that other side, get your expenses plugged in, get your other expenses plugged in, just get it done and be able to look back and find
action.
Love that.
What's your next live conference? Where will you be? We're going to be in Houston next week. We're going to be in Houston at Joy Packard's conference.
Oh, very cool. I'm going to have to run it solo because my colleagues are all going to be at a professional development conference, but I'm going to be at the Wholesale Formula Live in Atlanta in April. We're going to be at the Proven Conference later this year, Ecom Chicago. I always try to make it a point to wrap up the year at Ecom Chicago. Those are some of my favorite people. So we'll be there in October. Nice.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's an hour and a half packed with information. Again, Kim, we really appreciate your time, and Jeff for coming on, Robert, Lance. I mean, this is just information that everybody they're going to take a lot of time to soak this in, and they're going to have a lot of questions. We know that. So what we're going to do is we're going to poll our group after everybody gets to watch the replay to see what functions in Inventory Lab do you really want to figure out. And then that may be our next webinar where persons are like, listen, this is what we want. I want to figure out what's the most profitable supplier, SKU. I mean, we get those questions all the time. Lance?
Man, thank you so much, Kim. Thank you, Jeff. Man, an hour and a half, great content. It was a lot of the stuff that people overlook, so we really appreciate that. I learned so much. I use Inventory Lab for the basics, to send an inventory. Now I'm going to really expand and make my life a lot easier. And that anxiety.
Hey, Kim, I had a question. I'm sure there was a lot of questions we didn't address just because of time. Is there a way that our people can reach out to you or Jeff with a particular question that you could answer?
Yeah, and Jeff, I think you've been added to the Facebook group as well, right?
I'm not sure.
if we could add Jeff as well, but we always try to pay extra special attention after we've done any kind of work with a group. Tag us in your Facebook group.
Okay.
And we will, we just try to. I mean, we're not around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but if you tag us, we'll see something. And then Lance also knows how to get a hold of me. So if somebody really has something going on, like, oh my gosh, I logged into the inventory lab and smoke started coming out of my speakers or something, something like that. He knows how to get a hold of me, and if
the other thing too is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. we have live chat, so you can access that right from the support portal and get to one of our champions. So
that's a nice feature.
All right, thank you guys so much. We really enjoyed this time, and obviously all our users too. I see in the chat box people saying thanks, and we look forward to working with you guys, and also talking with you guys in the Facebook group. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to the next time that we talk or see you guys at a conference. Remember, she said walk up with your receipts.
Yeah. And I bring good swag to conferences. I got new swag this year. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys.
With the receipts, guys. Don't bombard her.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.